Imagine you find a $50 bill on the sidewalk. The rest of your day gets a little lighter. Dinner tastes better. You sleep easy. Now imagine you reach into your pocket that same evening and the 50 is gone. Not stolen, just gone. A hole in the lining, probably. The rest of your night is ruined. You replay it. You feel cheated. You are not a different person in scenario 2. The money is identical. The math is a perfect mirror. But your brain does not experience it that way. It never has. This is loss aversion. And once you see it, you will find it hidden inside almost every financial decision you have ever made. The investments you held too long, the subscriptions you never canceled, the negotiation you walked away from when you shouldn't have. The two men who first mapped this asymmetry did it without any grand intention of changing economics. Daniel Kahneman was a psychologist at Hebrew University in Jerusalem. Amos Tversky was his closest collaborator, a man Kahneman once described as the most brilliant person he had ever met. In the early 1970s, they began running a series of deceptively simple experiments on how people make decisions under uncertainty. They weren't asking who would get rich. They were asking something far more unsettling. Are humans rational? The answer they kept arriving at was no, but not randomly so. The irrationality had a shape. It had a direction, and that direction pointed almost always toward loss. In 1979, Kahneman and Tversky published a paper in Econometrica, not a psychology journal, but one of the most prestigious economics journals in the world. It was called Prospect Theory, an analysis of decision under risk. At the time, mainstream economics operated on a clean assumption. People weigh gains and losses symmetrically. A rational agent should feel the same emotional magnitude about gaining $100 as losing $100. Kahneman and Tversky showed with meticulous experimental data that this was simply not true. Losing $100 felt roughly twice as painful as gaining $100 felt pleasurable. The ratio wasn't exact and it varied by context, but the asymmetry was consistent, replicable, and profound. They called it simply loss aversion, and it would eventually help earn Kahneman a Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences in 2002, the first psychologist ever awarded one. To understand how deep the asymmetry goes, consider one of their most revealing experiments. Participants were offered a coin flip. Heads, they win a certain amount of money. Tails, they lose $50. The question was, how large does the winning amount need to be before you're willing to take the bet? If humans were symmetrical, the answer would be $50, equal stakes. Instead, people consistently demanded somewhere between $85 and $100 on the upside before they'd agree to risk the $50 loss. The potential gain had to be nearly twice the potential loss just to make the gamble feel even. A 50-50 bet with equivalent stakes felt, to most participants, like a bad deal. This is the architecture Kahneman and Tversky named the value function. If you draw it, it looks like a curve that slopes far more steeply in the domain of losses than in the domain of gains. The same unit of money produces a much sharper emotional response when it's taken away than when it's received. The curve doesn't lie. The pleasurable impact of gaining $200 is not twice the impact of gaining $100. The curve flattens as you gain, but in the loss territory, it steepens. Every incremental loss hits harder than the last. What this produces in real financial behavior is something that looks from the outside like stubbornness or irrationality, but is in reality something far more precise. Call it the pain premium, the invisible tax your brain places on any decision that involves the possibility of losing something you already have. The pain premium shows up most nakedly in investing. A group of researchers, Terence O'Dean at UC Berkeley, publishing in 1998, analyzed the trading records of more than 10,000 brokerage accounts over 7 years. He found that investors were significantly more likely to sell stocks that had gone up in price, locking in the gain, relieving the anxiety, and to hold on to stocks that had fallen, refusing to sell at a loss. The behavior had a name in behavioral finance, the disposition effect. It cost investors real money. The stocks they refused to sell because of loss aversion continued, on average, to underperform the stocks they sold. They were holding the losers and selling the winners, not because of any rational calculation, but because the brain simply cannot tolerate converting a paper loss into a real one. Realizing a loss makes it final. And finality is the thing the loss-averse mind avoids above almost everything else. This aversion to finality appears in markets, in negotiations, in the way companies price things, and in the way you, personally, feel about the objects you already own. Richard Thaler, the University of Chicago economist who won his own Nobel Prize in 2017, designed experiments in the 1990s with colleagues that illustrated this with striking clarity. Participants were given a coffee mug. Moments later, they were asked how much they would sell it for. People who had been given the mug demanded, on average, about twice as much to sell it as people without the mug were willing to pay to buy it. Same mug, same quality. The only difference was ownership, 11 minutes of it. Thaler and his collaborators called this the endowment effect. Things become more valuable, psychologically, the moment they become yours. And at the root of the endowment effect is loss aversion. Selling the mug isn't just a transaction, it's a loss. And losses, by now you know, feel like twice the equivalent gain. There is a version of this playing out in your own financial life that has nothing to do with mugs or stock charts. It lives in the mobile phone plan you haven't switched, even though a cheaper one exists, because canceling feels like losing something. It lives in the gym membership you still pay for but haven't used since February, because canceling would mean admitting the money already spent is gone. Behavioral economists call that last one the sunk cost fallacy, and it is the pain premium operating on the past, money already lost, pulling good money after bad, because the brain treats an unrecovered loss as an open wound. Kahneman and Tversky observed something else in their research that complicates the picture further. Loss aversion is not constant. It spikes under certain conditions: when you are tired, when your attention is divided, when you are operating under financial stress. Sendil Mullainathan of Harvard and Eldar Shafir of Princeton, in their 2013 work on scarcity, showed that people who are cognitively burdened by financial worry perform measurably worse on tests of self-control and rational decision-making. Their mental bandwidth is consumed by the threat of loss. The result is that loss aversion hits hardest precisely when it is most costly. When you can least afford to make irrational financial decisions, you are most likely to make them. We tend to talk about these behaviors as character flaws. Someone is a bad investor, someone is too emotional with money, someone just can't let go. But Kahneman himself pushed back on this framing. In his 2011 book, Thinking Fast and Slow, he wrote that losses loom larger than gains because that is what kept our ancestors alive. An organism that responds more urgently to threats than to opportunities survives longer than one that treats them equally. Loss aversion isn't a bug in the human operating system. It is one of its oldest features, written in at a level far beneath conscious reasoning. The problem is that the environment has changed. Prehistoric threats were immediate and physical. Modern financial losses are abstract, delayed, and often symbolic. The brain does not know the difference. It treats a falling stock price with something close to the same urgency it once reserved for a predator. The alarm system misfires, and you pay for it, not in the jungle, but in the decisions you make with money every single month. Think about the last time you checked your investment account when it was down. The feeling in your chest wasn't mild disappointment. It was something closer to dread. Then think about the last time it was up by the same amount. Probably a quiet satisfaction, pleasant, fleeting, already forgotten. The numbers were equal. The experience was not. That gap between what you lost in sensation and what you gained. That is the asymmetry living in you right now, today, shaping the calls you make and the risks you don't. Kahneman once noted that the most important thing about loss aversion isn't how much it costs you, it's how invisible it is. You don't feel it operating, you just feel the outcome, the reluctance, the regret, the deal you didn't take. The emotion arrives first and explains itself second, and the explanation it offers always sounds reasonable. The losses you avoided and the gains you missed are not symmetrical. Your brain made sure of that. It's been making sure of that since long before money existed. And somewhere right now, it is doing it again.